Hello, namaste, welcome, good morning, good afternoon, or maybe even good evening in whichever part of the world you are joining us from. My name is Deepak R. Khemani and I am one of the co-founders of Bloom. Wishing you all a very, very happy festive season. It is the occasion of Makar Sankranti. Different regions in India call it by different names. However, here there is only one name and that is Bloom. Bloom, which was birthed during the pandemic, now has had its show running on every Sunday, non-stop for the past 235 weeks. Is it right? Correct? File 235? The 235th live, online or offline, Bloom Sunday Talk Show. Thank you everyone for being along with us in this journey. And today, on this 235th episode, we have a very special guest who is joining us all the way from the US. I'm told it is past 1 a.m. now, and he has kindly agreed to be with us. Let me hand it over to my co-host and another one of the co-founders of Bloom, Prem Raj, to take the meeting ahead.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you. And we need to appreciate Rahul joining us all the way from the United States at an ungodly hour. So, a brief about Rahul Joglekar. He's an accomplished leader with rich experience spanning various industries. He has led multi-million businesses and global strategic initiatives for Fortune 500 firms across the United States of America, Asia Pacific, Europe, and Latin America. He has mentored several current leaders and industry professionals. Rahul is also active in public speaking and volunteering. He is the Vice President, Public Relations and Area Director at Toastmasters. Rahul has a broad and deep experience in marketing strategy, brand positioning, market segmentation, consumer insights, networking, market research and trends, campaign management, alliance partnership, outreach initiatives, event management, and advertising. He loves spending quality time with his wife and two daughters. His hobbies include networking, astronomy, music, singing, traveling, scenic drives, hiking, attempted cooking, and watching movies. From his experience and the hobbies, I don't think there's very much left. So we have, without doubt, one of the most versatile personalities we are having on this show. Welcome to the show, Rahul Joglekar. The main topic for this discussion is servant leadership, the fuel for growth. For a layman, can you explain or give us a lowdown on what is this concept of servant leadership?
Thank you, Premraj ji. Thank you, Deepak ji and Payal ji, and good afternoon, everyone there. Or if you are in a different time zone, good evening or whatever time maybe. It's an honor for me to be here on this privileged platform. And as Premraj ji rightly pointed out, the experience is in multiple fields, and that has given me an opportunity to delve deeper and broader into this amazing topic of servant leadership. So in layman's terms, typically when we talk of a leader, what we think is that he or she has to be influential and has to exert authority from top to bottom. A servant leader, in contrast, is a person, obviously he or she has to have a vision. The most important thing that a servant leader should have is a clear-cut vision, without which any leadership opportunity that he or she will bear will fail. Once that vision is established clearly in their mind, they need to make sure that they do not act as the bosses, whereas they work with people. And I always have in my career, whenever I have used servant leadership, most of the times, I have told people that they are working with me, not for me. And that's the most important differentiator for a servant leader. A servant leader cannot say, hey, you guys need to do this and better report to me by end of the day. That's the end of the story, because then people will just do it because they have been forced to do it. A servant leader will get everybody together in a collaborative manner, work with them, understand what their problems are, and then devise solutions together with them to reach the goal which they have outlined for them. So that's the essential characteristic. The other characteristic is a servant leader needs to be ready to step into the position of a team member. So just because I am a servant leader, I cannot say that, okay, I'm not going to do any hands-on work. I'm just going to be hands-off, giving directions and orders and expecting results from my team. No, that can't happen. A servant leader has to get his or her hands dirty, roll up their sleeves, work with the team, understand what they can do to help the team achieve the goals. And they have to work hand in hand with the team. As I said, they are working with him, not working for him. So those two, I would say, are the most important characteristics of a servant leader. And in layman's terms, Premraj ji, since you asked, if I have to talk about examples of servant leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., or Mother Teresa, these four examples come to mind immediately when you talk of servant leaders. All of them, for the whole of their life, they made sure that they do not act as order-giving leaders, but start working with people to achieve the goal. And the most close servant leaders, as I fondly always tell people, is our parents. Parents are leaders right from the start, from the birth of the child. That doesn't mean that they just force orders. They nurture, they love the kid, they make sure that they grow the kid up properly to face this world. And at times they become servants. Why at times? Many times they become servants without us realizing what they are sacrificing from their life to help us. So those are the real servant leaders.
Beautifully put. You differentiated that the couple of things that you mentioned about who or how someone can become a servant leader was very, very enlightening. The concept of servant leadership was coined first in 1970, but it has gained currency only now. What do you feel is the reason behind this revival of interest, or is it just a case of an idea whose time has come?
Great question. And I would say in these times, especially than before, COVID has taught us a lot. COVID has brought us nearer to nature. It has taught us to appreciate the finer things in life and have gratitude for those things. Servant leaders have sprung up more now than before because people have realized that they don't need autocratic leaders. They don't need leaders who just give orders, but they need leaders who can work with them to achieve those goals. And in COVID times, what has happened is certain organizations have forced people to come 3 days a week or 4 days a week in office in person. That has put tremendous pressure on people to meet those goals and at the same time have a decent work-life balance. Especially if a family member is ailing due to COVID or otherwise, it becomes a next to impossible task for them to serve both ends. So it's virtually like burning the candle at both ends. People don't want to do that. People hate being given orders. People want to make sure that they deliver their best to the organization because they are capable of doing it. They have the skills and abilities, but at the same time, they want to take care of their family and loved ones. And both these things can happen very effectively if they have servant leaders as their main bosses or leaders. And COVID, as I said, has taught us a lot. COVID has also forced certain leaders to change their leadership style from just being the bosses to being true servant leaders. So I have seen myself personally in my organization over the past 6 years how leadership has transformed from visionary leaders, so to say, to at times autocratic, to at times very don't care kind of attitude of leader, to ultimately servant leader. And that transformation has been facilitated by COVID. Again, it's unfortunate that it took COVID for us to change that mindset, to change the viewpoint of what true leadership can do and should be.
The Gen Z, who are now about 30 to 35% of the workforce, have they contributed in any way, or are they a main driving force which has forced the servant leadership to come into work because of the way they function? What's your opinion on this?
Excellent question. I wouldn't think Gen Z's importance and impact to the workforce or the society can be neglected in any way because they are an increasing percentage of the working population. At the same time, they are influential in the way they think and connect. So just to give you an example, I am part of some of the employee resource networks in my organization. And these are networks like the Asian Network or the Black African American Network or the Disability Network or Veterans Network. And it has given me an insight, a deeper insight into how different people function within their networks. So I am the co-chair for the Generation Connection. What we do there is work with people from anywhere from new entrants to the organization who are 18 to 19 years old, even the interns or the trainees, up to people who are about to retire, say 65 years old. So the people who are Gen Zs or nearer to that category, they don't care that you have certain processes in the organization and you are supposed to act in this way by default. They think with an open mind and with an adventurous spirit that they can contribute more effectively if given a free will. And that free will is not easily possible because there are certain processes and procedures in organizations. But what we have done is, at a couple of instances, some of the Gen Zs have come up to me and said, "Hey Rahul, I strictly don't agree with what was discussed in the meeting today. Could we look at it in a different way?" And my response always has been, yes, why not? I would love to hear about what you have to say. That first step puts them at ease, because if they go to somebody else who is not open to their ideas, they will say, yeah, you can send me an email and I'll look into it and then we'll take it forward. That's not the right way. Sit with them one on one, understand what they have to say, what are their concerns, grievances, what is it that they can contribute better and in a different way, and see if it can be integrated in the way you are trying to do things. If they get that impression, they will contribute even more than what they had imagined or what you had imagined. But that initial interaction with them has to be such that you think and say that they are welcome. Once they feel that they are welcome, they will contribute more. And this is not with the generation connection only. This is with disability connection that I've observed. This is with Black African American connection. And that very point brings to light the importance of diversity and inclusion, because only if you foster inclusion, only if you encourage diversity in the organization, can you bring in more creativity. More creativity will naturally lead to better processes and products and services, and will lead to growth by default.
That's nice to hear. Good insights from you on how to handle people, especially the younger generation, how to go with them, how to take them along, and then on the diversity and inclusion and equity. That's well said. Now let's move on to the other hat that you're wearing, the Toastmasters hat. Tell us a bit about Toastmaster and what is it that you do as a vice president there?
And this is a topic which is near and dear to my heart. I just don't say that because the question was put that way, but I like to tell a story from my childhood. So when I was a boy, 5-year-old kid, all of us know about the Sarvajanik Ganeshotsav, I'm sure. My grandfather used to be part of Girgaon. They used to live in a chawl, and we used to go there for the Ganesh festival, the Sarvajanik Utsav. And I was a small boy at that time who was very shy, very, very shy. And that time, my grandfather had taught me Ganpati Stotra, Ram Raksha, Maruti Stotra, and everything. And I owe a debt, huge debt to him. But what he also wanted to do is encourage me to step in front of audience and recite one of those things that he had taught me. At first, I thought it's possible. So they enrolled me into that interesting task. When I stepped onto the stage, though, the only thing that I could say is, my name is Rahul Joglekar, and I awkwardly walked off the stage. So just picture this, a 5-year-old kid stepping on the stage, saying who he is, and then walking off awkwardly. That's probably the most humiliating that I have ever felt in my whole life. And just because I had stage fright, anxiety. So I came back home almost in tears. My father, who was my biggest mentor, he sat me down for an hour, a very heart-to-heart kind of conversation. He said, Rahul, don't worry. You are just a 5-year-old boy. The same thing happens to 50-year-old adults also. It is not something which is going to stick with you for your whole life, but we need to be deliberate and methodical in the approach that we take to eliminate your anxiety and stage fright. So he used to work with me almost every day to make sure I learn the techniques of overcoming anxiety. And I again owe him a lot of debt, because that is one thing that got me out of the shell. When I got out of the shell in my first job with Siemens in India, after an year in that employment, I got the opportunity to be recorded live on video camera for their new recruit program. So what we did was, we had some current employees who had joined Siemens, and they used to film them. They used to ask them questions as to, how do you feel in Siemens? What do you like about the job? And things like that, which should come naturally to us if we are working sincerely. But it takes some amount of courage to face that camera, talk to the camera, and speak with conviction. And that is one opportunity that I got to hone my public speaking skills. As I got into more professional careers in consulting, that's when was the real test of my ability to step onto the stage, speak in webinars, speak in meetings, sometimes in board meetings and team meetings. And that was an excellent chance that I got, where I could speak speeches, presentations, everything, even to senior leadership. I used that skill when I joined Wells Fargo. For about 2 years, I had not heard of the Toastmasters program. Then in the coffee room one day, I saw a flyer which said Toastmasters. You won't believe, till that time, I had not heard of Toastmasters. And I said, okay, let me see what Toastmasters is. So I joined one of their meetings as a guest. And I loved it so much, the experience overall, that I joined another meeting as a guest. And that time I said, okay, I need to become a member. So I became a paid member there. Ever since then, 1 year from that time frame, we saw that the membership was dwindling because of COVID. People were leaving. They didn't have affordability and the chance to continue. The organization had stopped corporate sponsorship. So it was kind of squeezing them from all sides. Only the most interested, passionate people were staying. It came a stage where there were only 4 members remaining in our Toastmasters chapter. I said, okay, that's it. I have marketing background. I have sales background. I need to do something to get this membership up. So I became the vice president of public relations. Ever since that time, we have managed to increase the membership. I will not pat my own back. It was collaborative effort by all of us put together with some ideas that I could share with the team. But we managed managed to get it back to 15 members. And I feel nice about it because now people realize the importance of public speaking. They themselves come to me saying, hey, can we become members? And in due course, I got the opportunity to become area director for area 15 in our Toastmasters club that covers some part of Missouri. And that has given me exposure to leadership where I can bring back those lessons learned from there, put in our club and flourish our club further. So it has been symbiotic relationship, so to say, my area director and VP public relations. And people love speaking. There are people who join the club who literally have shaky feet when they give an opportunity to talk. Now they are very, very good speakers. So I'm very happy with the progress and I hope that many people join.
Thank you for sharing this. Talking about wobbly knees, most of us would have experienced. I am one of them. And I was reading some statistics somewhere which said the single most fear that a person has, that is 73% of the people in the world, for them the single most fear is about public speaking, sometimes which is much more than death. So we resonate with what you said, and even I've been a victim of that. Another thing, if you're talking about Toastmasters, we at Bloom, is there any way we can collaborate with Toastmasters to take some steps in India? Anything? Can you throw some light on it, please?
I think we can. So I have been talking to Payalji in the past. I have talked to many of you, the leaders into Bloom, and we certainly can do something to have a collaborative win-win situation for us. So our Toastmasters chapter and our region, they would like to talk to people not just in India but across the world about what are the benefits of public speaking in not just corporate life but in regular domestic life too. The reason I say domestic life is because when you become married, and with due respect to Payalji, don't worry, but when we are married, usually the wife has the upper hand. So the husband needs to exercise a lot of restraint to speak something, thinking about 100 different outcomes that might happen. So people need to realize that public speaking is not just talking when you feel like talking. You have to have clear conscience. You have to have clear preparation and ideas. You need to make sure that you are conveying the right message in the right manner and it is received by the recipient or the audience in the right manner that you had intended. So if there is synchronism between what you intended and what the audience receives, that's how the message will be correctly promoted. So why I'm saying this is not just corporate life, but domestic life also. We need to make sure that we do good public speaking. And with that in mind, certainly Toastmasters and Bloom can collaborate a lot. Bloom gives an opportunity for speakers like me to speak in public forums. Likewise, Toastmasters also gives the opportunity for people to speak in public forums. We can have people from both ends talk in their respective opposite domains. So for example, I as a Toastmaster can come to Bloom and give a speech. Likewise, somebody from Bloom can come to a Toastmasters club meeting and they can give a speech. We encourage guest speakers very much. We have had great guest speakers in the past. Yukti Kapoor, she has been a guest speaker on our Toastmasters meeting. It was an excellent presentation. And we encourage that exchange of ideas without which we will not grow richer. And when I say richer, it's richer in ideas, richer in collaborative ways to do things. So I think there is a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I'm talking about Yukti Kapoor. She's been a mentor to many of us too. We have been speaking for the last 25 minutes. Now I'll hand it over to Deepak to take it forward before I come to wind up to wrap it up. Deepak, all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Premraj. And Rahul, I can say this file is not yet married, but after you gave her that conviction that the wife always have that upper hand, I'm sure she's actively considering
Just an aside, Deepak, but in Bloom she has the upper hand.
Oh, she is our CEO, so we follow whatever she says. So she's used to And what better example of a servant leader than Payal, because she's the one who takes everyone along. She never decides for herself. In fact, there are times when she will say, I'm stepping down and somebody from you should come and take up this, and I'm unable to do this and all that. Then she does that, but then she's led Bloom for the past 2.5 years, and classic example of servant leadership. And I want to go back to that topic, Rahul, and just pick your brains a little bit. As Premraj said, that this term servant leadership has been in vogue for the past probably 50 years, in post 1970. All the examples which you gave, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, all of them were born much before 1970. Was there any term given to them? Was there any your lingo associated with what they did, or are we in our wisdom trying to put them into these buckets that these guys were servant leaders?
Amazing question, Deepak ji. Thank you. I would say that time you're right. That time servant leadership or servant leader concept was not there at all. So it was probably intuitively that they felt that they have to use this leadership model to take everybody together for a common goal. Take, for example, Martin Luther King Jr. In his time, and sorry for that term, but racist world, it was extremely difficult for a black African American person to rise to the stature of MLK. The only reason that he rose was because of his servant leadership technique. So he knew for sure what his vision was. He knew what he wanted, and he wanted to resonate or spread that message to people. The best way that he thought was through servant leadership. If you take an example of modern times and even current times, I would think the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, he would fit, and political differences aside, but he would fit probably in the category of a servant leader. We have seen his techniques of operation, his techniques of leadership are very, very similar to what a servant leader definition would talk about. And during the olden time, it was more termed as a visionary leadership. I would think if you talked about Mahatma Gandhi ji, he was a visionary leader, no doubt. He had a different approach and a way of doing things. Some people like it or not, some people hate it to the extent of getting violent, but he had a different way of approaching things to get things done. Mother Teresa, all of us know, she was one person filled with a lot of love for everyone. I have seen pictures of her carrying orphan babies in her arm and fostering them, nurturing them as if they were her own children. So that speaks a lot about servant leaders from within. They are no doubt visionary leaders. I would say to that extent, John F. Kennedy was a visionary leader. But if you ask me, was he a servant leader in the true sense? He was probably borderline, because he was more charismatic. He was more visionary. He was not definitely a servant leader only category. Whereas MLK Jr. was certainly yes.
Just a thought crossed my mind, and you may choose not to answer this question. That choice is completely yours. Your ex-president, Mr. Trump, where would you put him in the leadership category?
Only one term, autocratic leader.
Okay.
I cannot think of any other term.
So this now opens up a broad spectrum of questions which I can ask you, and then we will go ahead. You spoke about, you gave that example of Mother Teresa, having that baby in her hand who was an orphan, and she was fostering all her love and affection towards that baby. You also gave the example of, parents, that they are your first servant leaders because they'll do everything to make you comfortable, and we read about all those things, and all of us have experienced that also. Now, there is a blood bond in a parent-child. For someone like Mother Teresa or any of these other leaders which we mentioned, there is actually no blood connection. There is actually no bond. But these people can go and establish those bonds with people who are totally unrelated to them. And all these 4 or 5 names which you mentioned, how does that happen?
Again, a wonderful question, Deepak ji. Thank you. And I would like to walk through a quick story from my past, because that way people can resonate and relate to what I'm saying. So when I was working with Infosys, I had just joined Infosys in 2001, and I had joined as a project manager. So the responsibility and the authority was limited to that area of operation of a project manager. But my delivery leader, somehow during our initial conversation, she felt that I can do much more than just a project manager managing projects. So what she did was, and I'm highly grateful to her, she gave me the responsibility of mentoring 24 fresh college graduates. And just that concept should scare a person who has just joined the organization. 24 people from diverse backgrounds. They are not necessarily computer science backgrounds. They are from pharma background, chemical engineering. Some of them are not even engineers. So you can imagine the plight of a person who is handed that wonderful plate to eat. And for some reason, she felt that I can do it. And the only way that I knew that this will work is if I use the servant leader characteristics or the processes or methodologies. And I'm grateful again to one of my previous mentors when I was in the US on a business assignment for 6 months. He was the first mentor that I had in my life who taught me how a servant leader operates. He used to work with me day in, day out to make sure that I get the details of what needs to be done to be delivered. And I owe a lot to him. So I used those principles when I started mentoring these 24 fresh college graduates. The first thing that I did is had a team meeting. And naturally, any leader, even if it is not a title leader, will have a team meeting. So that's what I did. But when I had the team meeting, I did not give them a lecture. And I use that word on purpose. It was not a team meeting where I'm talking as a monologue and they are just listening. I wanted them to open up, introduce themselves, talk about what they are passionate about, what they would like to do in life, not just in Infosys. And in general, open them up so that I can understand where each person's passion and capabilities lie, and I can assign certain activities to them. And they felt very nice because then they could talk their mind out. They could talk to me about what they would be liking to do in their job for sure, because they were all fresh. So it was fresh blood. And once I got to know all of that, I told them first and foremost, look, Snigdha, who was the delivery leader, she has assigned me as the mentor. That doesn't mean that I'm going to give you orders. So please remember this right from day one. You're not working for me. I am not your boss. You are not servant. You are not working for me. You are working with me. All of us will work together to accomplish the goals and the projects. So I started devising mock projects for them so that they could learn. They could understand what are the details, technical details, functional details, other details. So we assigned mock projects. I divided that team into groups of 3. So essentially 8 members per team. We gave them mock projects. It was a healthy competition that I created, and they understood that, fortunately. So they started working. I told them I'm an open door person. Any time that you face a difficulty, please approach me. Do not wait till the last moment. They used to do exactly that. And we started working together as a very well-oiled engine. And I'm glad to say that at the end of 3 months, they came up with some wonderful design prototype. And we demonstrated that to senior leadership, to the delivery leader, to the vice president, and the SVP. And they were amazed. They said, Rahul, this is the first time ever in our organization that something as wonderful as this has happened. And I stopped them midway. I said, wait, this is not only me doing it. These are the 24. I'm just the enabler. So that gave them a sense of pride, all 24 of them. And till date, they are associated. They are linked with me on different forums. They talk to me. We exchange notes. And it has been a sense of pride because some of them are now leaders in their individual industry segments. Looking back 24 or whatever year, it gives a sense of pride that I was instrumental in enabling these people to come up with their own motivation to deliver or do something or create something which was so wonderful. I was not doing it all alone. They were helping me do it. And that's the kind of motivation and inspiration that I'm sure Mother Teresa and others have had. So I'm in no way equating myself to these great, amazing leaders. Yeah. But these are the common threads and characteristics which have driven them forever.
Said Rahul, so it's very difficult to step in the shoes of such big names. However, I have this belief, and I'm sure all of us on this panel will agree that even if I am able to change one person's life in whichever way I can, I've been there and I've done that, so I know how it feels. And I'm going through your profile. You've been in financial services, you've been in manufacturing, you've been in so many diverse industries. Do you see leadership differ in different industries, and is there a reason?
Very insightful question. Thank you. And yes, I would think the industry makes leaders behave in a different fashion. Case in point, in manufacturing, there are huge plants with workers and people working day in, day out in different shifts. Over there, probably a servant leader will have the biggest impact because people are working on an hourly wage basis. They are working on overtime. They know how difficult it is to feed their family if they do not work for even one day. So over there, if a servant leader steps into that kind of a role and takes on the mantle leading them, obviously from the front, because even if we say it's a servant leader, that person has to lead from the front, but that person can then sit with them. And I have worked on the shop floor myself, so I know the situation, the environment that exists over there. People scream messages. They do not speak. They just scream, yell, shout. And that's the nature of that industry because there are machines making so much noise that they have to scream. But that doesn't mean that they are not humans. Everybody is human. Understand the human nature of people. Understand the psyche of humans. They are there because they are forced to be there, not just because they love to be there. They may have capabilities, they may have skills, they may have experience, but they are there because they have to feed a family. Yeah. So that is the place where servant leadership may have the biggest impact. Coming to financial services, no doubt, it is a very regulated kind of industry. It is a very tight margin and top line revenue industry. But even there, a servant leader model will have a good impact. And as I have seen in the past, in the current organization, as well as with my leadership in the past, it has been in financial services. So it's not that just because people are in white collar jobs, that doesn't mean that they are all privileged, they are all elite. No, they still have to feed the family. So they are still humans. organizations, if you work with them, if you take them along and drive towards a common goal, they will, and this is kind of cliche, but they will even die for you.
Yeah.
And I've always told people that if you have a leader who is true and human, people will walk on fire for them. It is actually the case, because I have seen several people in my past, in my organizations, who have burned the midnight oil. They have stayed with me till 2 a.m. in the morning just because I'm sitting with them,
Yeah.
not because they love to sit till 2 a.m. Even if they are bachelors, it doesn't matter. But they have that josh, they have that inspiration and motivation to sit there and to work with the leader to achieve something fantastic.
Yes, clearly. And I have a follow-up question to what I asked you, and I'm sure you will be able to give some sort of an insight over there. Every company which is listed is basically answerable to its shareholders. So every quarter you have to come out with a profit, estimate the revenue. You have to satisfy your shareholders. How do leaders in these positions take care of their employees and manage their shareholders?
Great question. And this is where leadership is tested to the core, because leaders in modern times, more so than in the past, what we have seen is they are driven more towards profit. They are driven more towards revenue. They are driven more towards one-upping competition. So they always have competition in mind. They don't have the larger company interest necessarily, or the industry interest in mind. And if you compare, say, for example, Apple and Microsoft, and with due respect, again, if anybody is working in Microsoft, I did not mean anything bad about this, but people have done numerous studies, and what they have found is, if a leader, if an organization is driven by a purpose, and a purpose is something which is impactful, a purpose is something which will drive people to the core, to the end, to achieve those objectives. If a company, a leader is driven by purpose, then no matter what happens in the industry, what happens in the financial times or recession times, they will stick to their guns. They will not let the company down. So there have been leaders who have took the hit and paid salaries to employees without expecting anything in return. At times they have given them paid leaves to take care of their families. On the other hand, people have worked without a salary just because they know that the leader has the best interest, their best interest in mind, not just to fill the pockets of shareholders. So it's a tussle that leaders face day in, day out, to manage market expectations versus employee expectations. So we have all these fancy employee satisfaction surveys that we always do. Sometimes they are done just because it has to be done in the system, but there are leaders who do it in the right spirit. When they get those results, when people have expressed extreme dissatisfaction with some things, they sit with them and try to understand what has gone in behind their minds to give such disastrous results, and they take definitive action steps to make sure that the employees are happy, not just the market is happy.
It's a fine balancing act. Nowadays the new leaders need to manage so that public expectations are also managed and their employees are also kept happy. And a question which is connected to what we've been talking about, these 4-5 people whom we named, these were people facing leaders, mass people facing leaders, thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers. These are the people they impacted. However, within the corporate structure, you are probably a team leader, you've got 5, 10, 20, or maybe if you are managing a plant, you are, impact 200, 500. How does that matter? Is it any different, or the basic tenets are the same? If you are a servant leader, you will look out for all your 200 people, and then you will look out for all your 20,000.
Again, an interesting question. Deepak ji, you have a lot of interesting questions. Thanks for pinching my mind and my heart. So I will again like to narrate a story from my past. In the same organization that I talked about, the 24 fresh graduates, not a similar incident, but an incident happened where I was 2 years from the day that I had joined. I was managing a small team of about 20 people. And as you rightly said, if it's a small team, it's very difficult for a leader to enforce or implement certain servant leadership processes if the rest of the organization is not having those. And I would say that's probably what happened over there. So the incident or the situation was, we were in an extremely tight situation, technology critical project for one of the most demanding clients in Minneapolis. And that lady was absolutely notorious to force certain things on people just to make sure that it is delivered no matter what happens. And that's exactly what was happening. We were literally burning the midnight oil. The whole team was sitting to meet those tight timelines. The whole team used to sit for about till 1 a.m. And that's not a healthy situation at all. They used to come at 9:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, sit till 1 a.m., come back again at 9 o'clock in the morning. And this was going on for a few months. And I felt somewhere there was some unrest happening, because because you can only stretch the rubber band till a particular time. So I didn't want it to break, and I picked up the phone. I talked to the onshore lead, and I told him, his name was Virendra. I told him that, Virendra, look, this is what is happening, and we need to do something about this because I don't want them to suffer just because somebody 10,000 miles apart is not thinking about them. And he said, I understand, but my hands are tied, and she's going to ask me the same question tomorrow morning. So you better deliver XYZ things by tomorrow morning, or else we might have a difficult conversation with the delivery leader. And when he pushed that button, I said, okay, I should not take it lightly because this is crazy. I cannot just support this craziness anymore. So I picked up the phone. I talked to my delivery leader. I told her that we need to set up a meeting with that client. And I know it was an ambitious step. So we need to set up a meeting with that client, tell her the challenges that we have gone through for the past few months, make her realize that these are human beings. These are not machines or robots. So they can only work till a certain extent, and then have her empathize with their situation, work on a workaround solution, and see if it works. So she said, I understand your situation. It's an ambitious step. I'm putting my neck on the line for letting you set up that call. So I was very fortunate to have that delivery leader in that position. She was a true servant leader, first off. And that inspired me to be a servant leader even more. So I set up that call. I invited the onshore delivery lead. I invited my offshore delivery lead, few of my team leads also, and the client. Then I took the responsibility of speaking to the client myself rather than having somebody else narrate the situation because it had to come through the heart. So I narrated that to her. I told her, and her name was Danielle. So I told her, Danielle, we are sorry, but we will need to make a change or a course correction in this. We cannot just push the team so much that they break, because if they break, anyways, it's going to impact you. We cannot stand up a 20-member new team in one day. And she realized that it's not working. But then as it was, she tried to push with her own nature. So she said, I understand, Rahul, but I can't do much about it. You will have to deliver it. And I told Danielle, look, if you are forcing me, then I will have to put a change request. I will have to tell you that this cannot be delivered by this date. We will have to have a scope change done because there were several requirements that are creeped in, and we have to have a new timeline. And at that time, she felt cornered. She said, well, okay, you can put in a change request. We will review that with senior leadership and see how it works. So we put an official change request. The onshore delivery lead was not happy with me. So he picked up the phone and he started bashing me. And I said, look, there's no point shouting at me. We have to go through the process. I have to take care of the team. You have to take care of the client. And both of us together have to take care of this relationship. If you want us both to be successful, then let's take this route, see what happens. If it doesn't work, I'm ready to work 24 hours a day to make it happen. And he said, well, that's fine. We put in the change request. It was approved after a lot of deliberations and discussions. Then we had a new timeline. The team was overjoyed because they knew that I had put in my career at risk, because clearly it was not going to go good in my performance review. And that's exactly what happened. I got a meeting expectations instead of exceeding expectations. And it happens because somebody has to take the hit. But people realize that I will not let anything impact the team, even if it impacts me. So I had to put myself on the chopping block, so to say. But things improved after that. So it was not meeting expectations forever. Things improved. We got back on track. We delivered some exceptional results. The client was overjoyed. She picked up the phone herself, talked to our offshore delivery leader, and she said, thank you to Rahul for putting his foot down, because very few people do this. And only because he put his foot down, we managed to save this relationship and the project. So somebody has to take the hit.
It was wonderful. The real life story, sends across the message that, I'm going to take care of my employees first. Business be damned. It's not be damned, but you please change the timeline so that we can get the work done for you. And a question which is very, very, connected with what is happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
We all know there are recessions. Every day you open up the newspaper, go on social media, you find Amazon has fired 15,000 people. ABCD company has fired so many thousands of people. How does a servant leader call people and give them the pink slip and tell them, don't come from tomorrow? And not only you, another 10,000 of you will not be coming from. How does that work?
It's a tough question, no doubt, but a very, very good question. And this reminds me of the movie. I forgot the name of the movie, but George Clooney was the actor in that. And he had that responsibility of telling employees that you're no longer required from tomorrow. And I have watched this movie multiple times. And what sets that movie apart is the way things are handled over there. So he talks about certain other things that could be done for those employees in lieu of a salary. So there are certain benefits that the company can continue to extend to those employees, but not the salary. There are different things that people work for. One is the base salary, no doubt. They have to take care of the family. But there are other benefits, perks that people get, either because of higher roles or whatever. And And it's important for leaders to tell the employees who are being laid off that this is nothing personal. First off, we are not laying you off because we don't like you. In fact, the first sentence that should start is, you have done such a tremendous job for our company in the past and you continue to do that. We love what you do and we would like you to do this further. And then the however should come. Many times what happens is leaders break out the news immediately. So, and you wouldn't know, this has happened to me in the past. It was not a layoff, but a termination of that particular part of the contract. So that leader, she calls me to the room. There was an HR person and she says, well, Rahul, I think we don't need your services from tomorrow.
Oh.
And I said, what are you talking about? Because we have been doing such great work. I have been going over and above the responsibilities of that job to bring up new opportunities to the company. And what happened suddenly? And the only thing that she says is, well, we had thought that we would get funding for that additional work. Funding is no longer there. We have tried, but you don't need to come from tomorrow. And I said, okay, this is really bad, because if employees are going to just throw away a human being like piece of paper, that's not true. That's not authentic. And from then on, I have always tried to make sure that whoever employees have worked with me, people have worked with me, I take care of them personally. So if the situation that you're highlighting, if there is a layoff situation, as I said, the first thing is appreciate what they have done, appreciate what they do, make a human connection, make them feel special. And then you can say, however, you have seen that in the market, this is what we are facing. The company is trying to make sure that we do not get rid of employees as if they are articles or things, right? You are human beings. So we make sure that we are not doing that. However, what we want to do is we want to not necessarily give you a salary, but these benefits, which will continue so that you can continue to take care of the bare minimum necessities of your family. You may not be able to afford Mercedes Benz that you have today, but you should be able to do with a Maruti 800 car or whatever car. And you should at least be able to have a bare minimum sustenance till the time that the curve again goes up. Once the curve goes up, we will definitely have you back in the workforce with a salary and the benefits combined. And I think that will help them have some peace of mind. They will not have the peace of mind for long, but they will at least feel special. They will feel valued, that you're not just throwing them off like dirt.
Thank you for giving that real life story, and I can keep on asking questions, but we have to be cognizant of time, your time and everybody else's time. But before that, we have two or three very, very senior people in the room. We have with us Mr. Harish Mehta. He is the immediate past president of the Mumbai chapter of the Professional Speakers Association of India. He is a patron of Bloom. We receive excellent support and mentorship from him. He is a professional speaker and he is a leader, and he has also had vast number of years of experience in work. I would ask him to share a few things. I could hear, when you were speaking, he was either nodding or possibly he wasn't agreeing to what you were saying. So, Harishji, 2 minutes for you for having your view.
Rahul, congratulations for the position that you are in today. I want to ask you a few questions. I am in the business of leadership for the last 43 years, and I'm sure you are a little less, maybe, may not the same. How many Rahul Joglekars would you create before you leave? 1. 2, how soon will you get over your but and your however before you leave? I observed conviction of a leader, because I teach leaders globally. I teach leadership not from hiding, but from facing the truth and speaking your mind. And these people, even if I'm not on the show, they will push me to come on the show wherever I am in this world. I love this attitude of theirs. That's why I love them more than any other community. I'm a part of Les Brown. I'm a part of Marshall Goldsmith. I'm a part of John Maxwell. I'm a part of my own action coach community globally. I'm a well invested in myself, coach, mentor, teacher. So I ask you these questions because you are sitting on the flame, and maybe we can talk later offline or some other time. I want you to share this thought on Bloom World. How strong are you when you sit on this chair and you make those decisions, notwithstanding what the stakeholders want from?
Harishji, first off, namaskar. Thank you for those questions. Your background is scintillating, and there is no comparison. You talked about 40 plus years of experience, so definitely I will need a long time to reach that stature. But your questions are illuminating for the mind. So the first question was, how long will I wait, or how many more Rahul Joglekars will I create? I would think, I would not really look at how many more Rahul Joglekars I create. What I would think is, in every interaction, it's like the moment of truth. If I'm interacting with a person, if he or she is a junior person to me, I'll make sure that I mentor that person very effectively to understand the ups and downs of corporate world and life. There are life coaches, there are corporate coaches, there are other coaches. I would think that I would talk to the person one-on-one, absolutely, without a doubt, because I've seen that one-on-one discussions always bear the best fruits. They open up their mind. They are more authentic if they feel that you are speaking from the heart. So they will talk to you about anything and everything that you wish. And that will be the opportunity for you to understand their strengths, their weaknesses. Accordingly, you can tailor your mentoring approach to make sure I create another Rahul Joglekar. If I'm not having that approach, I might create another XYZ or somebody, which will not necessarily live the values of me as I had passed on to him or her. Unless those values are lived in real life, they may not become true servant leaders. So that's the most important thing. And your second question was, how long will I wait? And I wouldn't really stop, to be very frank, because if a person stops thinking that, yes, I have done enough and I've created enough number of Rahul Joglekars, that's probably becoming stagnant. Because unless I have that drive to create many more, which is what several leaders have done, that scale is not reached. Unless that scale is reached, the impact is not achieved. Unless that impact is achieved, the difference is not created. If you don't differentiate, if you don't create that difference in society, you have not done enough. So I would really not wait. I would not really stop. I will continue, and I'll make sure that every single person, now again, when I say every single person, I will not force my values on a person if he or she is not receptive. If they have a different set of values and standards, I'll let them be happy with themselves. I will not force. But if I see that there is a ray of hope in that person taking on those values and taking on that kind of a leadership role, I will put my level best. I'll put my blood and sweat to make sure that they become that, because only then I know that they can make a difference in the society. It's kind of a cascading effect that I will create.
And I am fearless and confident.
Wonderful. Superb question and wonderful answers. Harishji, thank you for those insightful questions. Rahul, fantastic answer. We also have with us, we have Chadda with us, who has been in the car and who's, I know, itching to say something. Dr. Alka, over to you.
The age of 60 also, he was working so hard. If there was an event, he was personally calling up the flower guy, was personally calling up the food guy, and he was doing all of that. And I used to tell him that, क्यों आप ऐसे करते हो? If juniors हैं ना. So one day I went with him to the event site, and when I was there on the stage, he was taking care of the pictures which had to be put, the banners which had to be put very early in the morning before the whole thing started. He was doing it himself. And then I said, again, you're running up and down. And as soon as I said that, when he was doing it himself, people who were junior to him, they came running to the stage and they started doing the work. So he says, this is servant leadership. I have to do it. I have to show it. Then they will come and they will help me. So he never did pravachan. He never did a lecture. He never called people to help him. He did it himself. And then when they saw that he was doing it, it helped him to call people and to follow him. That is how he did his leadership. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Alka. True leader, leads by example. It's not only about delegation. It's about being an example to others so that they can follow. Past 2 a.m. in the US, where Rahul is just now. He has a function planned for his daughter tomorrow. Let me hand it over to Premraj for officially closing this. And I can say, Rahul, this is not the last time where we are meeting. Bloom clearly needs to and will work on some sort of collaboration with you. We need to establish a school of servant leadership. Let's plan on doing something like that. Let's plan on taking this to a much wider audience. Let's work on that. Over to you, Premraj, for the official.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, Rahul, for consenting to be on our show at an ungodly hour. To summarize, what a servant leader does is on focusing on the needs of others before considering them. This leads to greater engagement, more trust, stronger relationships, increased innovation. The session was very informative, illustrative, and educative. Thank you, and we look forward to more association with you and your work.
Thank you so much, Rahulji, for removing your valuable time. Bloom is further looking for collaboration with Toastmasters and you, and I would really thank you who got us introduced. Thank you, beautiful audiences, and wishing you all a very Makar Sankranti.